Hello everybody, welcome back to Garrett's Garage. Today I'm actually going to work on this bumper a little bit. You can see a big chunk of paint is missing here. I'll show you a little closer in a minute. And we're going to try and make this thing look nice and pretty. If you notice that I'm wearing the same shirt as yesterday and the same hat, well, it's because I'm starting tomorrow's video today. So my shirt's going to change during the course of this whole thing. I don't think there's really going to be any confusion, but I want to say, just to be clear, I have no idea what I'm really doing here. I am not a body and fender repairman. I've never worked as a body and fender repairman. When I was 16 or so, I took auto body repair in high school. So I learned how to paint, and I painted probably 5 or 6 cars when I was between 16 and maybe 20. I haven't painted anything since, and I'm about to turn 60. So it's been 40 years since I've painted anything, and I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a good time doing it, and that's really the point. I'm trying to do a good job, but there are many ways to skin a cat, and I'm just showing you the way that I'm doing it, and I can pretty much be certain that the way I'm doing it isn't the best way. It's just the most fun way for me. This bumper needs a lot of work. It's really kind of messed up. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it real good. I'm going to clean the bumper to remove any wax or grease. I'm going to use this stuff. I got it when I bought all of the other paint supplies from a paint supply shop up on Sherman Way. So I'm going to clean off all the wax and grease. This time I'm just going to use some paper towels, and I'm going to try to get it out of every single little nook and cranny, and just basically get this thing as clean as it can possibly be before we even attempt to go to the next step. Now that we've got it all clean, I'm going to do it again. Well, it's about as clean as I think it needs to be to move on here. So this is what I've got so far. You can see the dark area in the center here. This is the original outline of the bare spot when I got the car. And then little by little, more and more has chipped off. And now I've come along and tried to knock off any more that's really loose. So I'm going to continue with that a little bit more here. I know I can just keep going until it just chips off the whole darn bumper, but I'm just trying to get to where the paint here has a reasonable purchase on the bumper, and then once I get to that point, my plan is to use some of the adhesion promoter on this area, and then I'm going to use some spot putty filler to come around and make a transition from all of these sharp edges here. So when it's all sanded smooth, there'll be no little edge here anymore. And then when we go to repaint, base coat over, clear coat over the top, and you won't be able to see where this ridge was. At least that's my plan. There's also a spot or two over here. Like this one, I'm going to have to probably chip some of the paint away from around that one. Yeah. And there's a few more like that on this bumper that I'm going to have to mess around with, so I'll probably just go ahead and do that and then show you how it looks after I'm done. I don't think you need to see all that in a time lapse. I've been using this plastic scraper to kind of very gently go along and find any little bits and pieces that are loose. And the plastic is nice because it's pretty gentle and doesn't scratch stuff up too much. But I think we're pretty close to finding the end of the loose paint here. So I'm going to go scrape a few other places on this bumper that are bad. After chipping away all the loose paint I could find, this is pretty much where I'm going to end up. And I've done that a few other places on this bumper. So now I'm going to start with the fill process. This is the stuff I'm going to be using. This is my plastic adhesion promoter. And this is my spot putty. And hopefully the combination of these two will make it so that never happens again. Yeah, I decided to chip a little bit more. It just seemed like there was still a little bit too much loose paint. Apparently this whole bumper was not prepared properly when it was painted by whoever painted it after it made its way to Missouri from Taiwan. So that's why all the paint's kind of falling off of it, unfortunately. I don't really want to paint the whole thing, so I'm still going to try and do a little patch job here. We'll see. Well, I'm done with all the chipping stuff. You should always wear safety glasses when you're doing that stuff. I mean, it flies all over the place, so yeah. So now I'm going to clean up the whole area real good, and I'm going to completely wipe down the bumper again with wax and grease remover. Well, now we have to wait for my spot putty application to dry, and then I'll sand it, and we'll probably have to apply putty and sand a few times before I switch to a little bit of primer. It seems like it's working. I guess we'll find out. And if you didn't notice, today is now today, so I have on my lovely Central Intelligence Agency shirt. This shirt is old. I got this shirt from the Langley, Virginia CIA gift shop. I don't know if there still is one, but there certainly was one way back when. I was working on a movie called Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we got a bunch of CIA stuff from the Langley gift shop, and I ended up with this beautiful shirt. And I still have it. Can you believe that? Amazing. Well, while we're waiting for this to dry, I guess rather than just having me jibber jabber, maybe we should take the truck for a drive. This is my absolutely gorgeous 1999 Ford F250. I'm going to make a camper shelf for it. I've got some rib pieces there that I'm going to put on the back and then make a cover. It says it's a 450, but it's not. It's a 250. Some joker I used to work with decided to change my emblems while I was out of town. So let's go for a little drive. Oh, the bear. Oh, damn it. All right, it's got a brand new battery. Try this again. Yay! Apparently there's some corrosion in the main cable that goes between the battery and the starter motor, and that's starting to cause intermittent resistance issues. So there's something I can put on the plate for later. A new project, just what I needed. This truck gets the worst gas mileage. I think the worst it ever actually got for me was around 4.5 miles per gallon. The best tank it's ever had, and I've had this car since it was new, this truck. The best tank it's ever had was about 13 miles to the gallon, but it did a lot of coasting. So it's not a very good economy car, but it will pull pretty good. It's got a huge V10 engine. It looks really bad right now. There's been a few times that I have purposely made it look way worse than it really is. There was one time a local realtor came and asked me if I could park it somewhere else because she claimed that it was interfering with the potential sale of the house she was attempting to flip. Or she made the mistake of using the term eyesore while asking if I could park my truck somewhere else. So I, of course, responded in a polite, nice way, like I would. But then I took the truck into my driveway, and I used some acrylic floor wax and mixed in some brown and rust kind of colored pigments, and I painted the truck to look all nasty and rusty, and I made it absolute eyesore, and I decided I kind of liked it. The realtor wasn't very happy, but we got some really cool neighbors because they don't really care what the hell I do. So it ended up working out for me in the long run. So this thing has a big monster V10, but it doesn't have much get up and go. Oh, that's all of it. Woohoo! Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna guess 0 to 60 is probably somewhere in the, I don't know, 9-second range? Something like that? 10 seconds? I don't know. It's faster than a vintage MG, but not by much. Although that big acceleration run that I just did, that probably just cost about $6 in gasoline. So 0 to 60 romps in this thing are not something that you do very often. What this thing's great at is off-road, man. It's a beast. It gets over just about anything. You see the worst ruts, the worst conditions, the worst rocks, and they just disappear under the hood, and it goes, just crawls right up. We'll take this thing four-wheeling. I promise. We'll take this thing four-wheeling real soon. I'm building this camper shell in the back here to make it more camp-friendly. I've had one on it before, and it's really neat. It's like a fabric cover made out of awning material, and then it's pretty much waterproof, and then you can unbuckle the sides and flip it up forward if you want to have an open bed if you're hauling taller stuff. It's a really neat solution. Hard camper shells are pretty cool, and it's just they're really hard to take off if you want to store them. They're big, and with the fabric one, you fold it up and put it in your linen closet if you want. The only thing you gotta store are those ribs back there, and those fold up pretty flat. So the low fuel light came on. I'm gonna have to put $100 worth of gas in this thing so I can go another, what is that? I think $100 in gas would get me about 190 miles, maybe 200 miles, something like that. So you wouldn't want to commute very far in this beast. I like driving this thing. It's so big and ungainly. It corners like a great big old truck. It's got live axles. This is the last year that Ford offered the four-wheel drive pickup truck with a live axle in the front. By live axle, I mean it's a solid axle from one wheel to the other. It's not independent. It's one big axle with a pumpkin, just like on the rear end. And it makes it so the front end has leaf springs, like an old wagon. Makes the ride way worse. I think 1999 is the only year that you could get a Super Duty four-wheel drive with a live axle front end. Yeah. Look at that beast. Well, we're back in the garage. It looks like my spot putty is all dry. It actually only really takes 15 or 20 minutes to dry, so I didn't really need to go screwing around in the truck for so long, but I did. Okay, so now I'm going to start working on cleaning this up. I'm going to use wet or dry sandpaper, and I'm going to use plain water out of a spray bottle, and I'm using 400 grit to start with. So after going over it with 400 grit, it's starting to look pretty good. One of the things I always say is if you can feel it, you'll be able to see it in the end. So I always go over everything and run my hands over it. And this is getting way better after just one go around with the spot putty. But now I'm going to go over the whole thing again and do spot putty again on all of the little blemishes we're working on. And I haven't really talked much about it, but I'm kind of working this this chin here where it's been scraped on everything. This car is so low that it scrapes no matter what you do in just about every driveway. So okay, so spot putty round 2, and then I'm going to sand again with 400 grit. I'm not really putting much pressure on the sanding block. I'm going to get a new piece of sandpaper, and again I'm using just plain water. She especially likes getting in the way if I'm painting or doing something where a little extra cat hair would be a problem. And she loves to drag her tail across whatever I'm working on. So she's very helpful, aren't you, Tyga? Meow. And we can't forget Marshall's here, of course. Marshall hangs out with me all the time. Hello, good girl. You're a good girl. Marshall, she's, if you can believe it, she's not even 4 months old. She's like 8 days away from being 4 months old, and she already weighs over 35 pounds. So I think Marshall's going to be a pretty big girl. You're a good girl. I'm going to be applying the spot putty with a plastic spreader like this. After using them a few times, the edge can sometimes get messed up and have little nicks or scoring. And the edge is very important to get a nice layer of putty or body filler or whatever it is you're using it for. So before I use it the next time, I like to take some of my used 400 grit and just clean up the edge a little bit. Make sure that it's all nice and smooth, and yeah. So these are looking quite a bit better after going over again with 400 and water, and they're starting to feel pretty good. I can't really feel anything there on the edges. Over here, this one, can't really feel anything there anymore, which is nice. Ooh. And these guys, once again, can't feel a thing. So, and this chin is just a big disaster, but I'm just going to grind it off as soon as I put it back on the car anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So next step is, of course, I'm going to use my wax and grease remover and completely clean the whole surface of the bumper again. And then I might actually start applying some primer. Actually put some primer on. Flexible primer. So I'm going to wait for the primer to dry, and then I'm going to sand it again. This time I'm going to use 800 grit wet or dry with plain water, and I'm going to take it all the way back down to really have a look at what my surface is looking like. And I'll probably do another layer of spot putty after I sand. And also, I'm wearing a very good 3M respirator design for this kind of paint, so I'm being relatively safe. I have finished sanding the original coat of primer and applied a second coat of spot putty because there were still some imperfections, of course, in the surface. The primer is sort of a filling primer, so it also helps to hide surface imperfections. I'm going to wait for this to dry, sand it with, probably going to do 400 again on this at this point. And then when it gets all nice and as smooth as I can get it, I'm going to prime it again. But I got to wait for a while for this all to dry.
You are now about to witness the strength.
These are coming out pretty nice after my second go around with primer. It's nice, it's smooth. You can loop down across it and I don't see any lines or any sign of the patch. And the rest of these look pretty good. And the chin even looks pretty good. So I think I'm going to call it a day, though. This stuff all has to dry, and I think I'm not going to be able to switch over to doing any base coat or anything tonight, because I want all this to dry pretty good, and then I want to go over this whole bumper with like 1200 grit to kind of scuff the whole thing up a little bit in preparation for the clear coat, because I'm going to end up clear coating the whole thing, I have a feeling. I mean, I'm making this up as I go along, so who really knows how it's all going to play out. But I think I'm going to do 1200 on the whole bumper, and then I'm going to do just certain areas with the base coat, but maybe I'll just end up repainting the whole thing. That's kind of the way it's going, it seems. But we'll see. Hey, if you stuck around this long, really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I just want to say, hey Jim, thanks for watching.